Japanese sensation Naoya Inoue is my pound for pound #1 in the world today, and if I'm honest with you, he has been for quite a few years now. Inoue is a 2-division undisputed champion and overall a 4-division champion. He's done all of this in just under 30 fights. His world title record is already 24 fights, 24 victories and 21 knockouts. He's almost overtaken the great Floyd Mayweather Jr., who had 26 professional world title fights. Take into account that at the time of this recording, he's still only 31 years old, in comparison to the likes of Alexander Usyk and Terence Crawford, who are approaching their late 30s. Inoue is only now hitting the peak of his career, but what he's done over the last 11 years is nothing short of phenomenal. Yet the Japanese superstar is facing so much unnecessary criticism that I think stems from a lot of ignorance. There are many fight fans out there that I've seen suggest that Inoue shouldn't even be in the top 3 pound for pound. There's always that constant nagging argument that he needs to fight in the United States of America to prove himself, and now he's being accused of ducking his mandatories. All of these are false. Firstly, he's boxed in the United States 3 times already and has boxed in Scotland before, has quite literally just signed to fight his mandatory who pulled out twice in a row, so instead he took on a late notice replacement, and has one of the most impressive resumes in the world when you consider how easily he's beaten an array of world champions that have gone on to do great things or have already accomplished amazing achievements. As per the time of this recording, Inoue has beaten 14 different world champions, which of currently active fighters is second solely behind a pound for pound star Canelo Alvarez. Now, one of the constant arguments I always hear that just isn't true is the fact that he's got no competition in these smaller weight divisions. But if you look at the small weight divisions, there's lots of pound for pound elite talent there. Guys like Bam Rodriguez, who's atop of the pound for pound rankings, Inoue himself, the great Roman Gonzalez, who took the pound for pound spot in the last decade, Juan Francisco Estrada, Kazuto Ioka, who was in the top 10 pound for pound for a long time, and Junto Nakatani, who's in the top 10 pound for pound currently. So these small weight divisions are stacked with elite talent. And yes, Inoue hasn't boxed any of those fighters, but some of the fighters he has defeated are extremely good. If we were to look at his standout victories, you got Stephen Fulton. Now, what is more impressive about this is the fact that Inoue, after clearing up the Bantamweight division, moved up to his 4th division and instantly took on the best champion there. This was deemed his toughest test, but he completely controlled the fight, won it extremely convincingly and scored a great knockout. Now, this victory is strengthened even further by the fact that Fulton's come back stronger, moved up another weight division and won a world title convincingly. There are also his 2 victories against Hall of Famer Nonito Donaire, the first being an all-time classic and potentially the greatest fight of that decade. It was the first Donaire fight that really sold me on Naoya Inoue, because not only could he blast top level opposition away, but he could get through adversity, suffering a broken orbital bone in that fight and finding a way to win all the way through a 12-round war, almost securing a knockout in the later rounds. Now, I've seen people suggest that Donaire was shot to pieces by the time they fought, way past his best and an old man. This just isn't true, because he would go on to win another world title and defend it after the Inoue fight. When the pair met in the rematch, Inoue blasted him away extremely convincingly. But whilst these 3 victories are his standouts of recent years, we have to go all the way back to the beginning of his career to highlight one of the great victories that no one ever talks about, his absolute demolition of Omar Narvaez. The Argentinian Narvaez is one of boxing's longest ever reigning world champions, and by the time he fought Naoya Inoue, he was a 2-division champion that had suffered just 1 loss in his career, a unanimous points decision loss to a prime Nonito Donaire. Narvaez had been a world champion for 12 years, having a record of 29-1 solely in world title fights, which is amongst the highest in history, and he'd never even been stopped across 30 world title fights when a 7-0 Naoya Inoue blasted him away in 2 rounds. And it's not only the fact that Inoue is constantly fighting top quality that makes him pound for pound #1, but the fact that he's just so dominant and has so much knockout efficiency against these fighters. Not to mention, the Narvaez victory made him a 2-division champion after just 8 professional fights. But having fought a successive 24 world title fights in a row, he scored 21 knockouts, improving his record to currently 29-0 with 26 knockouts. The most impressive streak in his career, in my opinion, was that phenomenal bantamweight run, where he systematically blew away a ton of durable and undefeated world champions. After retaining the junior bantamweight title he won from Narvaez 7 times, Inoue moved up to bantamweight bantamweight to face the extremely durable ex-world champion Jamie McDonnell. Now, McDonnell isn't the greatest fighter the division's ever produced, and he wasn't the greatest fighter at the time, but he was tough, seasoned, and had beaten the highly rated Japanese fighter Tomoki Kameda not once but twice, and most importantly, across a string of world title fights, had never been stopped. When he met Naoya Inoue, he was blasted away in one round. And another world champion, the division's boogeyman Juan Carlos Payano, suffered the same fate when the right hand from Inoue completely sent him into orbit in the first minute of the fight. He then went straight on to unify the titles in one of the most impressive blowouts in his career. Undefeated world champion Emmanuel Rodriguez had angered Inoue early on before the fight after an altercation with Inoue's father. The Japanese monster entered the ring with a point to prove and completely blasted Rodriguez away in 2 rounds. Australia's Jason Maloney was stopped in 7 rounds by the monster, with both Rodriguez and Maloney going on to win world titles after the Inoue fight. And top champions in Paul Butler, Marlon Tapales, who beat Inoue's mandatory MJ Akhmadaliev, and Luis Nery were all knocked out in brutal fashion. 7 of the world champions Inoue knocked out had never been stopped heading into the fight. And it's worth noting that at 122 pounds currently, in the division he's dominating, he's at a weight disadvantage, having travelled 5 divisions already, having skipped the flyweight division. If he's to move up to featherweight, 126 pounds, and win titles at that weight, he'd join the Elite 5 division club, but in reality, it would be a 6 division span. With the fights that are on the table, it looks like another brilliant year coming up for Naoya Inoue. He's got a couple of defences at 122 pounds and that potential Nick Ball fight at 126. I personally am also interested to see him fight Junto Nakatani if Nakatani moves up to 122. As I already touched upon, he's only 31 years old as we speak, and he's got so much time ahead of him. I genuinely think by the end of his career, he's going to cement himself as an all-time great. The way he handles top world champions so easily in such consistent fashion is extremely special. And the fact we've already seen him travel the world and dig deep to overcome adversity in all-time great fights is extremely unique. If I was to predict my fighter of the decade by the end of this decade, with the prime years he has left, my best guess right now would be Naoya Inoue.